What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Deck Talk Podcast, and we have one heck of an episode. It's going to be another episode that you're going to learn a lot on, and a lot of people that if you do some live bait fishing, this is going to be a product that you are definitely going to need. And but with that said, we do have some business to take care of. First off, we want to get to with how the podcast has been growing. We are wanting to um, start running ads at the bottom. You can see where it says "Run your ads here." Contact me or Pappy to get your ads placed here. We're averaging during the lives in between 2,000 to 2,400 people watching during the lives, and during the month we're getting around 680,000 views per episode. So this would be a great place to be able to start running your ads. But let's get to our other business. This episode is brought to you by Bruiser Baits, Firefly Outdoor Marines, YOLO Tech, Joe Burns Fishing Rods, Spear Point Hooks, Pro Line Baits, and Cornfield Fishing Gear. Guys, make sure you go check them out at their websites and on Facebook. Use the Deck Talk 10 discount code and get you a discount. And then it'll let them know that you came from us. We would deeply appreciate it, guys. And with that being said, I'm Colin Burnett.
I'm Pappy J, and we have a shout out going to our American heroes here this evening. And today's shout out will be to Sergeant K. Vaughn. He's a 91 Bravo with the 82nd Airborne. Airborne, my bad. So congratulations to Sergeant Vaughn,
Yeah, thank
and
you.
remember, guys, to get those names to us so we can give these guys the appreciation that they so much deserve.
Heck yeah. So with that being said, let's get this show on a road. We like what we said, it is going to be a very informational driven podcast, and we're going to be talking about fishing, talking about how you can be able to catch fish and or good quality fish. And with using this product, we have Damon with Xtreme Bait Tanks. Brother, how are you doing, brother?
I'm extremely well. How about y'all?
Man, we
Doing well.
cannot complain. Cannot complain. The weather finally has been nice to us. It's not burning up on us. So,
Yeah, if you like
but
cold evenings and warm days, we got them on our way.
we have them on the way. I know. Last night um, I seen 56 was the low when we were coming through Kentucky. So,
Yep, that's right.
so it was very nice to be able uh, to sling some cakes in some cooler weather. So, but Damon, can you explain to us? I know you have a wide variety of stuff that of different tanks that you go from small tanks to a massive tank that I ended up seeing at, or both of us ended up seeing at the Elite Fishing Expo here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Can you explain to us what what it is that Xtreme Bait Tanks do?
Yes. So it's if you're interested in what I call the evolution of extreme. When I started the business in 2018, it was just a basic bait tank like most everything that was out there. Being the perfectionist that I am, I started getting invited on boats, people who had ordered tanks. Well, we're sitting there waiting on the line to go down, and we're talking bait tanks. And I was asked, can you do this, or that? And I brought it back to our team, and we said, yeah, let's figure this out because these are requests that these boat owners, these fishermen want, and no one offers them. And what that was, Colin, that was really the beginning of what I call, and the website's based after it, called Build a Tank. So Build a Tank allows you to pick a standard footprint, a standard tank, and you customize it. And by
Right.
customizing it, I mean you can change the color of the tank, change the color of the inside walls, whether white or black. add drains, no drains, how it's wired, what kind of pumps go in it. And I quickly learned that that was something that a lot of people were extremely interested in. And because we
Oh
have
yeah.
our own, we have the ability to cut our own material. We don't rely on anybody to order parts and pieces in material wise that's related to the bait tank. We could get a special size. So, say a 35-gallon, for example, the footprint's 24 by 32. We'll get a request where they say, I want the biggest tank I can get, but I only have room for 31 inches. Well, guess what? We can cut that down an inch so it can fit
Right.
that space. Leaning posts are huge. A lot of times you'll have a cooler up under the backside of a leaning post in a center console, and they want to be able to put a bait tank there. Well, our standard tank is 26 inches tall, but they may only have 22 inches. So we can adjust that tank down 4 inches to be able to slide up under that leaning post. And not only that, but the lids typically traditionally hinge across the 24 inches, using the 35 as an example, not the 32. Well, we can hinge the lid across the 32 so they can slide it up on their long ways and then still be able to access the bait without having to figure out how to drag the tank out from underneath the seat. So
Right.
going to your question, as far as sizes, we started with our standard sizes. Our smallest one that we make, and I get this question quite a bit, is a 12-gallon. Now, when I'm talking 12-gallon and 35, whoever's listening, understand that that is the bait area. We decided right out of the gate, we didn't we didn't want you to think you were getting a 12-gallon tank and to find out you only have 8 gallons for the bait, or a 35 you only have 20 gallons for the bait.
Right.
So a 35-gallon, by our definition, is a 45-gallon tank, 35 in the bait, 10 in the filter. So the smallest one I was referring to is a 12. That's 18 gallons. We have built them up to 400 gallons, and
Mm.
that was a shrimp tank that went down to or down to Florida. So once
Wow.
we started to build a tank and we built the website and how all that works with the internet, I started getting calls where people's Googling bait tanks and we pop up. And they say, hey, I need this, this, or that again. We'd write it down and discuss, is that something that we were comfortable building? I would not build anything if I wasn't comfortable with it. And what I mean by comfortable is I wanted it to perform. I have
Right.
been, the business has been absolutely blessed in figuring out the combination of the three most important things that go on in a bait tank. It's the circulation, the filtration, and the oxygen that's added to the water. But if you build a big tank and you cannot condition the entire body of water, then it's a lot of money out the window. So I would tell them, once we were comfortable, we would build it, we would test it, and as long as it met our standards, we would let them buy it.
Right.
And that's the long of the short. And I don't want to take up, I can talk forever, so I'll let you ask questions and I'll take it from there.
Right. Well, and I've used your bait tanks multiple times. Um, I've got buddies that have them, and I think, I mean, they're phenomenal. Now I did see something like, because you was talking about like with the oxygen in the tank and stuff like that. You've got different like spouts to where you can have that water going different directions, correct?
Yes, and there's a story there if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So initially, it was just a standard water introduced into the bait area. And not all baits liked it, but it is what it is, and that's the best it was. I decided to add two pumps to most all the tanks. And the initial concept was a built-in backup for 12 volt. I don't make the pumps, pumps fail, and if you've worked hard, and anyone who's caught bait understands what I'm about to say. Catching bait, learning that skill is harder than catching fish. So you
Oh
want to
yeah.
have a tank to be able to know that once you got your bait, you're on your
They're
way
gonna laugh.
to some success there. But my point being is, when you have bait, when I talk to customers that have bait from as small as minnows, shrimp, real delicate threadfin, all the way up to 2 foot ladyfish or skipjack down in Tennessee. And when they do these offshore boats, everything in the ocean's bait to something. So I
Right.
couldn't even go through the list of things that's been in the baits offshore. The directional flows that you're referring to, and this happened about 3 months ago, we created a set of 4 directional flows. And the way the water is introduced back into the bait area, the pump is attached to a threaded bulkhead fitting. So we have those threads that are already in there, they're PVC fittings. And we made here at the shop what we call a 45, a 90, a 180, and a 360. So what that is, that's literally a 45 or 90, like a 180 is a half a circle. So when you screw
Right.
that in, the water's coming out like this.
Right.
90 is half of that, and a 45 is half of that. So a 45 is like a jet. Now, what baits would prefer a jet that's going to create a good current? Trout.
Like, yeah.
So that's an example. You might be a guy that fishes with multiple baits. And if you do that kind of water flow to alewives, if you do them the threadfin, they're dead. You do them the
Right.
minnows, they're not going to last. But let's say the next day or next week, you decide you're going crappie fishing and you want to do minnows, you can unscrew that 45 and put the 180 in there or the 360 in there. And that way the
Right.
water comes out, but there's zero current. And the bait allows the same benefits as every other bait, which is filtered, oxygenated water. Here's the real magic of that. When you have 2 pumps and you have 4 options on each pumps, when you start to mix and match, you have 14 different water combinations. 14.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm convinced because no one's proven me wrong yet. And maybe there's someone out here listening, but I'm convinced that by having 14 different options inside your bait tank, there's not a bait in the world we cannot keep alive. Because as of
Yeah.
right now, we've not found one. And we have
Mm-mm.
we have tanks in 48 states and 9 countries, and I talk to everybody and they thrive.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the thing is with you being able to do that, because it's able to keep the bait fish alive a whole lot longer. When I was talking to you um, at the expo here in Chattanooga, I can't remember how long, and I'm sorry.
That's
How
right.
long you said that you had bait alive in that tank?
We've kept bait at the shop for 2 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I tell you, you talk about the expo down in Tennessee.
Mhm.
About 4 or 5 years ago, I was at ICAST, and we did a booth there, and I met John Godwin with it used to be with Duck Dynasty, and he had already
Right.
had a tank, and I got to meet him. And he comes in and he goes, "You know what I call this?" I said, "What's that?" He says, "I call it the outdoor aquarium." I said, "Man, I love it. I'm going to use it." And it really is. So if you manage, Colin, the tank will do a lot of things, but there's still things that you as the owner must understand about your bait. You
Yeah.
must the ammonia and the water temperature. So for example, trout, cold water. And right now, this is the majority of the calls that I get right now, especially with guys that are buying bait tank for the first time and catching and keeping bait. They'll dip water from the edge of their boat. Surface temps are 85 plus. They're throwing a cast net and they're letting that thing drop 10, 15, 20 feet. Here, they're probably 50 or 60 feet now. And the reason for
Yeah.
that, they're in 70-degree water, not 85-degree water. You go catch a bait that's a 70 or 65 to 70-degree bait and you put them in 80, 85-degree water. I don't care what tank you have, they're not going to last.
Mm-mm.
So to understand the water temperature and how that works. And while we're on that, I'll tell you a neat little secret that I tell all the customers when it comes to this. You know those laser thermal guns that shoot surface temps?
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to own one, because if you're catching your own bait, and even if you're buying your own bait, fish are cold blooded. If you shoot that bait, that'll give you the temperature you just pulled them from. Then you can shoot your tank, and you want that tank to be within a few degrees of that number.
Right.
And if you do that,
Because
you're not going to
does
shock your
it
bait, and you've
matter
got
if
a
it,
very
like, let's
good
say,
chance at those things surviving.
yeah. So does it matter? I know it matters if the water is hotter than, like, let's say they're in 80-degree water and you put them in 85, 90 degree, then yeah, I can understand that. But does it go the opposite way
Yep,
too if the water's
sure
too
does.
cold?
Yeah, and you can shock. What I've learned is you can shock bait, and they might pull out of it, but it's not what you're looking for if you want to dial this in. If you want to
Mhm.
dial it in so that when you pull that bait out of that tank, it's better than when you put it in there. The less stress and no shock, the better.
Yeah. So, um, which one of my good buddies, Caleb Bell, he he's got multiple. There ain't no telling how many of your tanks that he has, but and I really like the efficiency of like how easy it is to clean, like with the socks and stuff like that you have on them. That I mean, they're very. You just throw them in the washer, and you can wash them. You can get them. They're clean, and then just being able to put them back together, just real simple and easy. I mean, it's a lot of people. I used to have aquariums and stuff like that, and I always hated having to mess with the filtration system and stuff like that. And getting out on the boat with him and seeing how he just, I mean, it's just pretty much as simple of how everything just goes together real quick and easy. I think within five, no more than 10 minutes, he had the socks on there, water filled up, and and he was ready to start putting fish in or bait into his tank. Um, and so, do you with that? I know Caleb. He puts like salt and stuff in his tank, and which that's for the slime, correct?
So what I'm told is adding salt to the tank. And the first time I heard that, I thought I was being punked. I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but it's
Yeah,
absolutely a fact. Non-iodized salt. I use a, water conditioner salt, water softener salt, not the pellets, but what we call the crystal. And the rule of thumb is 1 cup per 10 gallons on most baits. I'm
yeah,
told gizzard shad, they don't like it as much. It's 1 cup per 20 gallon. And again, this is why it's important to understand if you have a 35-gallon tank, that's 45 gallons, you're conditioning 45 gallons of water. And
right.
same thing with ammonia lock and whatever other chemicals you like. Um, but going back to, I was trying to think what it was the question. I think I got you off track or got me off track.
Sorry.
Oh, the
So the
salt.
salt, because
Yeah.
like
So for sure, you want to put that in there, and that'll help with the slime coat. And I'm told it
it
also
doesn't
helps
mess with the
calm the
or
bait.
with the pumps or anything like that, correct?
No, you just put it in the bait area. Most people will put it in the bait area. It sinks down to the bottom. You can put your bait in there, and as that water's circulating around that tank, it's going
It
to
started.
eventually dissolve and end up in the water.
Right. Yeah, and because that's what Caleb does, and uh, the first time that I ever seen him do it, I'm like, "Are you crazy?" Because
Right.
I didn't know because we would always just go if we're going to go do some. Let's just say we're going to do some crappie fishing and stuff. We just go grab them in a bucket and take it to the local bait shop and get some minnows, and
Well, sure.
we didn't do anything with it. But Caleb was the first person that I've been out on the boat with that actually went and caught his own bait, and to see the process that he went through to catch his own bait. I mean, it's a skill and a half in itself just to get to catch the bait, just like what you were saying.
Yes.
That's the
100%.
hard part. Um, And but to be able to see him pull up, like we were pulling up like 6 to 8 inch gizzard shad, and it was just seemed like he just filled that bait tank up, and we were out there for 6, 7 hours, something like that, and we still had gizzard shad at the end of it that was still kicking. I've never seen a bait tank though, and which Pappy was out there with us, and on one trip, and that the bait was usually if they're in a tank, they kind of die off. They don't have that energy much anymore. But them bait was still just as lively as when you pulled them right out of the water.
So, like I had said in the beginning, the whole plan, the whole goal on these tanks, and this is what we have fine tuned, is that when you pull the bait out of the tank, it's better than when you put it in there. It calms them
Yeah,
down. And if you notice, Caleb's tank is a black wall. And I don't know if he
yeah,
explained that to you, but we learned that black absorbs light. Oh, I mean, we knew that. But in a bait tank, it blinds the bait. I don't know if you paid attention when he was dipping bait. The biggest
yeah,
difference that you can see that I can explain, if you have a white wall tank where light's penetrating into that water and a black wall tank, even with the lid open, you reach into that white wall tank and you got to sort of chase everything around. Black
yeah.
wall, be packed full of bait. You can see the one you want. You can gingerly reach in there, net him, and he doesn't even know he's in the net until he hits that surface. So when
That's
they're in there and they're just calm, hanging out, getting
yeah.
all the
Well, I
scales out
never
of the
even
water.
realized
Yeah.
that. He didn't say nothing to us, but I never realized because I have seen the ones um, like with the black. I didn't even. I just thought it was just how it was made. I didn't know there was a purpose for it.
Yeah,
So I'll
that
tell.
was me. I didn't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, no. That's what I was saying. I really never knew that it had a purpose for the
And
the black wall or the white wall.
so you deal with a lot of people. Everybody has an opinion. The consensus has been been an absolute home run. But I'll tell you some things that it will do. And I think this is a natural transition that bait go through every day when the sun goes down. When they sort of transition. That I think they're somewhat of a chameleon. In the daytime, they'll get brighter, so they blend in, and at nighttime they get darker, so they're not as visible to predators. When
Right.
if you keep bait in a black wall tank for an extended period of time, it will become darker and darker and darker. I had caught a crappie here on Dale Hollow, and I had a big black 100-gallon black wall tank on the back of the boat. I kept bait. I caught a crappie. I put him in there because I'm going to have a sandwich here later. And a couple days went by. I pulled that crappie out, and that's when I really got to see what a black crappie looks like, because this thing was charcoal. And
Really.
another interesting bait experience, we use or catch alewives here in the Carolinas. They're bluebacks. If you take those two baits and you put them right next to each other, you can't tell them apart. They say the only way you can tell them apart is if you cut them open, the gut lining, one's white, one's black. Well, I caught the herring, the alewives. I had them in this tank going on a couple weeks. And all of a sudden, excuse me, I kept them for a couple weeks, but after a day or two, I opened the lid and I had about 400 in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a blueback literally had these two stripes that go right down the fins on the back. And that
Huh.
black allowed those colors to come out in that bait. To my knowledge, no one on Lake Cumberland knew there were blueback herring on this lake because they're not allowed, but they were in there.
Mm.
And that
Oh
was a
wow.
result of those being in that tank for a period of time. And they say the colors on gizzard shad are insane. If you keep them in there a day overnight, next morning,
Mhm.
the colors in a gizzard shad you've never seen before unless you have them in a tank like that.
Wow.
That's interesting. Which it makes sense because like you go to Florida and in that brackish water, all the bass and all the fish are darker in that brackish water.
Yeah. And so some people will say, I like a bright, shiny bait when I'm pulling my boards or what have you. But a lot of people have said too, on the opposite of that, if you happen to have, you're pulling a darker bait out of your tank and you're broad daylight and you're putting them on the hook and dragging them behind the boat, how do fish feed? They feed up. Well, you've got the sun, the water, the bait, and this fish. They say a darker bait will cast a bigger shadow. And there's guys that absolutely swear by it, by having those
I
bait as
agree.
dark as possible.
Yeah,
So
and that
how did y'all stumble up on that?
Say again,
How did y'all come up that
the
the
black.
darker? Yeah.
Yeah. So I, living in Kentucky, I had made a trip down to some of the rivers down in Tennessee where they use skipjack. Because on those rivers, if you've not fished them, you know, if you have, you know what I'm talking about. I think the state record in Tennessee is 63 pounds for a striper.
Mhm.
And they'll
yeah,
use anywhere between 12 and 20-inch skipjack. And I was told you can't keep skipjack alive unless you catch them where you're fishing and you hook them and hang them. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're fishing with two off the back. You may have two or four on the front sitting there on a hook that you caught and you're drifting the rivers. And I said, well, let's get them in a bait tank. They said they won't survive because they're so hyper that they chase the light and you put them in a bait tank and that fast, they're 1,000 miles an hour right into the wall and they just kill themselves. So
Yeah,
if you're not trying to keep them, people put them on ice and they use them for cut bait. Well, I met a guy called Noel Salt. He said, Damon, if you can figure out a way to make that black, you can keep skipjack. And we talked a little bit. I'm like, all right. Well, here was the kicker. I called the manufacturer that I buy my material from, and where I could buy a sheet or 10 or whatever. And I said, do you make black? And he said, yeah. See, because on our tanks, we use 1/2 inch on the tops and bottoms. We use 1/8 inch material on the wall. We have an outer and an inner wall giving us a 1 inch air pocket, which is the insulator. So I wanted the black for the inside wall and the white for the outside. And the manufacturer said, yeah, we can make it, but it's not a standard run. You have to buy the whole production, which was 6,000 pounds, about a $30,000 investment. I said, well, I don't even know what works. Can you find me a sheet so I could put a couple tanks together? And he did. And we put a 35, a 65, and a 100-gallon tank together. And we sent them down to Tennessee with guys that I knew what they were doing. And they put skipjack in there. And we went from what they call a 15-minute bait to being able to keep a dozen to 20 in the bigger tank, 18 to 20-inch skipjacks for 3 days.
Oh wow.
And when we did
wow,
that, I'm like, we own this something. And what was interesting as far as the behavior of the skipjack, same thing. You put them in there, and they're lackadaisical. They just hanging out. Nothing hyper
yeah.
about them. So I believe by taking away their vision, they go by feel, and that's why putting the right current in that tank, in
Yeah, that's
addition
what I
to
was
the
about to
blank,
ask.
gives them something to do while they can't really see what they're doing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, because I know, like the skipjack and stuff. Like when we catch skipjack, it's mainly right below Chickamauga Dam, and it's always in some pretty decent current, and
Yeah.
so, uh,
Sure. Now
Especially if
you
they're
don't
but
have
pulling
to
water.
give them, the full force of being below a dam, but again,
right,
you give it. I tell people, I said, watch your bait. You don't want to. You don't want to toilet bowl your bait. You want to give them enough to do to keep busy, but not exhaust themselves. And another neat
yeah,
thing about the tanks and the way the circulation works, everything's against the walls. So the very center is what I call the calm of the storm. It's like dead
right.
water. Matter of fact, and you'll even see some scales or something collect right there on the bottom
Oh yeah, and
because
they just
there's nothing pushing it away. You'll watch those baits, they'll vortex and they'll all get in a row like little soldiers, one after the other, and they're against that wall, and you'll watch them sort of fluctuate from in, back to the wall, like they're finding their happy spot. Let
Right.
them go, and they're ready to go.
And that's amazing. So on that, kind of to go back, you said a 400-gallon tank. Is that going on somebody's boat, or is that staying like in a shop for somebody?
Yeah, that was a bait and tackle store that sold shrimp. So
Yeah.
here, back to the evolution of Extreme, we had our basic freshwater tank, and it's important to note that even though it was freshwater tank, like for freshwater baits, everything that we use in the tank is 100% saltwater worthy. We're talking 10 wire, 316 stainless, 3-to-1 marine grade, but heat shrink, butt connectors, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
Once we started getting calls for offshore, we already had the product to be able to go on the boat and not have to worry about saltwater. And if anyone's saltwater, they
Exactly.
know saltwater is not your friend.
Oh, very
Th-
much so.
Then we started getting calls from bait and tackle stores, marinas, people that wanted to be able to buy in bulk. And typically they buy on a Monday, Tuesday. They sell bait all week long, and then they replenish on that Monday or Tuesday. So they needed a tank that was going to be able to keep bait for a week until they restocked. And then that's how we started getting into the bait and tackle stores.
That is awesome. We got a question that um, says I live in Northeast Alabama. Do I have to have different tanks for different types of bait?
Not only if you're trying to keep them together. There's some baits that can cohabitate, others cannot. The one that comes to mind are pilchards, a saltwater bait. If you put any bait in there with a pilchard, the pilchard's going to eat it. So I don't know what two baits he's referring to. You can mix
Right.
baits. Most people don't like to because they don't have to try to sort them when they're netting them out. Now, with that
Right.
said, believe it or not, we make a tank for a boat that's a dual tank. So it's one unit that has two compartments. The smallest one we make is a 30-30, and the filter's in the center. So it filters and oxygenates both sides of the tank. And the people will do that if they have multiple baits they want to keep separate.
Yeah. And I, I don't know if I've seen that one before, but I think Caleb had said something to me about it.
Bait and tackle stores like them because it's one unit. We can hook a chiller to it. So if they have minnows, for example, or different size minnows, they can keep their smalls and large separated. Same water treatment, same water temperature, which is in the mid to high 50s, and they can sell out of either side.
Right now,
I got. I
go
have a
ahead, Joe.
question. How big is your ice chest? That thing looks massive.
So the one on the tuna boat,
The one on your website, which I guess may be on your tuna, it may be on a
yeah,
tuna boat, but
that was a 300 gallon. So how that came about, Dave, does anyone here watch Wicked Tuna?
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
So probably 5 years ago, I was given Dave Marciano with the Falcons phone number. I
right.
called him, I told him who I was, and I said, I want to build you a bait tank. He said, I'm not interested. And I said, I appreciate that. I said, but I'm not asking you for anything other than 30 minutes. You pick the day and the time, and I'll be there. I want to show you what I got. And he said, well, I'm not available for about 3 or 4 months. I said, then can we schedule it? Long story short, he gave me that 30 minutes. I drove to Massachusetts. I brought several tanks with me. He says, man, I like this. And if you go back on our YouTube, that's one of the original interviews I had. But Dave Marciano was phenomenal. Greatest guy
Yeah.
you could ever meet. And nice to everybody. He's not one of those, if you've ever met a celebrity, they know it and they think it might be better than you type of deal. Not Dave. Down to earth, great dude. We went back with the tank. We caught what we call cold water herring. So the baits out there, they've got the Atlantic mackerel that are more warm water. Go real deep, get to cold water herring. They're like a 50-degree bait. And what they were doing, they were dipping ice bags in salt water because they're filled from the surface to get that temperature down, just to keep them alive enough to be able to get them on the hook. But we had done something special with this tank. We had ice in it, got the bait in there, put the hooks out, 300-pound tuna within an hour, got it in. And from there, that's where we started to make a footprint in the saltwater market. It started going all up and down the West Coast. And then we started picking up California, Washington, and Oregon, down to Mexico. And I'm not sure I got off on this, but to answer your question, that's what I mean by all baits, all sizes, fresh and salt water.
Yeah, that. I was trying to talk, Damon. I was trying to talk old Pappy into getting it so I can put it on my boat. He wasn't down for it yet.
I wouldn't mind one of them ice chests. I mean, that's a big old. I can put a big old deer in that thing.
There you go. I don't
Yeah.
know how much I lost there. I lost signal for just a second.
Yeah,
Am I getting caught up?
part of it was going in and out, but I think was able to
Okay.
be able.
So that ice chest was on the pinwheel and the really bugging. They had asked for ice chest for their tuna. So that's how we ended up there.
That is awesome.
That's cool. I mean, because well, I mean, I know I've never seen an ice chest that big before. Um, uh,
Right.
but that's pretty. Now, do you make anything like ice chest smaller than that, or is that your standard size?
Now that's the only one we've ever been asked to make.
Okay.
Hey, Pappy, he does make some small business cards, though. I'll say
Oh yeah,
that.
There you go.
I've been up close and personal to that thing too. I
So
might need one for my camper.
yeah, yeah. So um, I don't know where I lost my. There it is. So what so like with skipjack, you know that like what you were saying, like they do not last long at all. And like gizzard shad, I know gizzard shad, you got to be able to have them in like a tank that's rounded edges and stuff, so they do
Good
not
point. Yeah.
just keep on going into. Um, so does all your tanks are all of them kind of rounded like that to be able to? So like if one day you want to go and catch threadfin, and then next day you want to go and catch gizzard shad, can you be able to? Will that be able to? One tank be able to suffice for somebody?
Yes. So all the bait tanks are rounded inside. There's no corners. And you're absolutely right. Bait will get hung up in that corner. They'll red nose and they end up
Yeah,
dying or almost dead. So by having no corners inside the tank, there's nothing for them to get hung up onto. The only thing we make that literally has a corner are live wells. And when we started making live wells, because some of these boats, they're tournament fishermen, they get penalized if there was a dead fish for a weigh-in.
Right.
And they're like, "What can you make me? My live well sucks. What can you make?" And I thought, well, let's see what we can do. So we basically we put the oxygen box. So we made this little box that will circulate, filter, and oxygenate. We built a big live well, so X number of gallons, whatever their dimensions were. We dropped one or two oxygen boxes in there so it would circulate, filter, and oxygenate the water. Now, those have corners. And if you try to keep bait in there, you're not going to be very successful. But
right,
recently, in what you saw at the expo in Tennessee, was what we call the dual purpose tank. And
right,
we have been working with Sea Arc to basically replace their live well with this unit.
Hmm.
So it's 65 gallons. It would be an insert in lieu of their live well. And when you buy that boat, basically you already have an Xtreme Bait Tank live well installed on your boat.
So
Now that makes sense of why.
have you guys
That
already
makes.
got this
Go ahead,
deal
Pat.
going, or is it?
Well, it's
I
been
mean,
in talks. So
okay,
what? Yeah, what we're waiting on the dimensions.
gotcha.
The communication hasn't been the best with them. Not trying to say bad, but we built that prototype for that boat, and based on what we felt like would be a good size, is because that
Mhm.
was a 5 foot live well by 2 foot by 20 inches tall, and
Yeah.
we took it there. We wanted to show it off. We met with Steve Henderson there, and trying to think of the other guy's name there, but nonetheless, Jeremy Coe. Jeez, sorry, Jeremy. He just his wife just had a baby, and he was on maternity leave. So we're waiting on the actual measurements of what it is they want us to make for that drop-in unit to be able to install on that boat. Now we do have a customer that just from Missouri just dropped the Sea Arc down to Alabama to a guy that's ripping his live well out, and then we're going to get dimensions. So we're actually going to install one on our own inside of a Sea Arc.
Oh,
Oh
heck
man.
yeah.
So, like, can you how wide? Like, let's say somebody wanted a 30 gallon uh bait tank. Like, how big would a 30 gallon bait tank be? Like, if somebody's, could you put it like in down in the whole part, like where you sit? Could it fit right there in a bass boat?
Yeah. So a 30 gallon, if you're going by the total gallons, that's a 20 gallon tank. 10 in
Mm-hmm.
the filter, 20 in the bait. The footprint on that's 24 by 24, 26 inches tall. But remember, we can adjust the height. So we have a short series, which is 12 gallon, and that's 18 inches tall. So what we
Right.
did, Colin, we had our signature series. There's 6 main tanks. We start with the 20, and they go in increments of 15, 20, 35, 50, 65, 80, and we jump to 100. We took those same tanks that are 26 inches tall and made a short series. So a 20 became a 12, a 35 become a 23, a 50, a 32, and then the 65, 80, and 100 become a 40, 50, and 60. Now, so bass boats, or what I call low profile boats, those are very nice. And I have a 1756 G3. It's a very low
Right.
profile.
Yeah.
I've got a short series in there, which is super nice because when I had the tall one in there, it looked like I had a hemorrhoid going down the lake. This way, it's right with my railing.
Right.
And guys who transfer bait love it if you're in the back of a pickup. Most pickup railings 20 inches. So once you knob down this and you slide that in, you can tarp right over that tank. And if you're doing something overnight, especially these crappie guys that will carry bait from one state to the other because they're minnows, they'll plug into a 110 outlet. They can lock that down and not have to worry about someone stealing their bait in the middle of the night or their tank.
Yeah.
That's
Huh.
awesome.
So, do you do anything for like for bank fishermen?
So the smallest we make is the 12, and being 18 gallon total, filled with water. When you take the water weight in the tank, that's 180 pounds. We
Yeah.
are looking at some type of a beach buggy where they could have the rod holders and a 12
Right.
gallons
Right.
for some shrimp or whatever. Might be able, but to answer your question, we've never made anything smaller because the welding equipment that we have to use is of such size that if we go any smaller, we can't get the right angle in order to make
Ah,
a watertight weld.
Yeah, yeah.
I got you.
I can see that. I can see that being
Yeah.
a problem.
So, so what is the best way for somebody to, if they want to purchase a bait tank, what is the best way for them to do that?
So if they're comfortable on the web, just Google bait tanks. Extreme pops up. All of our information, sizes, pricing is right there. They can literally go to build a tank, find the one they want, answer the questions, and it will calculate what the cost of that tank is. Some people don't like that kind of stuff, and you just call me,
Yeah.
and then I can get on there, ask the questions, and build it for them.
So
Right.
instead of build a bear, we're doing build a tank.
Build a tank.
Build a tank.
Yeah.
Gonna build a bear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
every time you say that, I keep thinking build a bear. But
Well,
no,
that's what gave me the idea, really.
oh, for real?
Oh,
Yep, for
that is
sure.
awesome.
That is
Now,
awesome.
did when you had those skipjacks, and I know I'm keep on because I'm over here in the back of my mind. I'm over here thinking like what you were saying with the inside of the tank being dark. Um, did those skipjack change any colors? The 3 days that you had them in there.
Yeah, they got a little darker. All, and I'll tell you, that was in the very beginning. That was 4 or 5 years ago when I started doing the black. So I really wasn't, and I wasn't a guy that used skipjack every day, but they had to change color. Every other bait that I've seen will change colors. Will absolutely get
Yeah,
darker.
that
But
is awesome.
with
I
that
need to
said,
have
too, for
Caleb
those
put.
guys who like a brighter, shinier bait, I don't know how long it takes once you put them on the hook and you start dragging them behind the boat. How long does it take them to transition back to brighter?
So see
Yeah.
that as a fisherman, that also that kind of makes me wonder: are we even throwing the right colors? I mean,
Well, and the thing, like in a live well, though, like when you catch deep fish, they're a lighter color, but you have them in the tank,
but
and then a couple of hours you go back, and then they're darker.
yeah, but are they really a lighter color if they're down there in the deep like that in the in dark? I mean, if they
Hey,
especially well, I guess it really depends on how long they would been down
Well,
there.
that could kind of go back to like what Damon was saying was the darker color casts bigger shadows. Well, they don't
Yeah,
really want to have a bigger shadow if they're
yeah.
down deep. You know what I mean? So, what if? So
and
maybe
when
that.
I say black, I mean it is black. There's zero light penetration. Even though that material is an eighth inch thick, we've taken the brightest lights, shut everything down, and just taken the brightest flashlight and put it right up to the material,
Mhm.
expecting to see just a little bit of something come through. Nothing. I don't know how they can make it that dark. And I'll tell you one more. We actually put on the very first one, we put a black bottom in as well, and we learned we can't do that
Oh
because
wow.
you couldn't see the bait. I don't care what light you had, daylight, whatever. You couldn't see the bait. You had to feel for them. So we went from there. We put a white floor in and the black walls, and we learned that we got the same result. And I think what it has everything to do with too, again, when you shut that lid and you block out the sunlight, it's pitch black because that's a half inch.
Yeah.
That white surface is on a half-inch material with a black core, so there's absolutely no light penetration there either.
So with the black bottom, uh, did was there any kind of difference with well the change in the bait fish attitude from the black bottom to the white bottom, or is it
Zero.
basically zero? Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, that was we were really excited to learn that
yeah,
because I was fearful that the only way to do it was to have a black bottom too, and
right.
that wasn't the case.
Right.
Man,
But I
that's
knew that
that's
wasn't
got,
going to
that's
work.
got me wondering. That's I mean that kind of I mean if a fisherman goes and fishes ledges like that, which again I guess it all really depends on how long the fish has been out there or whatever. But I mean maybe a man could throw something a little darker and a little bigger and see what happens. You know,
Yeah. Now,
it's interesting.
have you tested like the sea, like let's say like 95 to 100-degree day out on the water? Have you tested like what does it keep the oxygen level at, or have you tried that?
Good question.
It is. So here's what I've learned. There's been a couple people that have bought tanks that run aquarium stores. One guy was in Texas. They have the I'm trying to think of the device that determines what level of dissolved oxygen, the DO, is in water.
Right.
And what we've learned is with the Venturis that we use, the air that we breathe is between 18 and 21% oxygen.
Correct.
It's not pure oxygen. You'll see guys with medical grade oxygen bottles, which is 100%. They're running it into their tank and into a stone to oxygenate their water, right? The problem is you can actually over oxygenate the water. And what'll happen, you burn the gills, kill the bait. So back to the question, what I was told, and I've never done these tests myself, I've had other people do them for me, and they said that with running the Venturi, you get it's constantly breaking up the air microscopically, infusing it in the water. You'll see some bubbles come to the top, but you'll see the walls, the floor, the bait, when you look real hard, covered in these real small oxygen bubbles. So
Right.
we're
Right.
told that colder water holds DO better. The reason we can get away with warmer waters in temperatures like we just came out of is because it's constantly putting air in that water, is the only thing I can think of. The dissolved
Yeah.
oxygen has still been brought up to as high a level as possible without going into the danger zone, because it can't, because it's just pulling in air from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we just had Johnny with fish lungs on, and so they make a product that goes into the live wells,
Yeah,
and
I've seen
they
it.
actually sell it for also for tackle shops and stuff for their bait
Hmm.
tanks.
Yeah,
And so when he was telling us, he told us a story that kind of blew my mind. That they took like what was it, a 20-gallon tank aquarium, just a glass aquarium, and they wanted to see how well the bass will work or live in that aquarium. And they said he put it on the back of his tailgate just with the fish lung thing in it. And so, and that
And it
sucker
was out in
lived
the
for,
heat. It stayed out in the heat.
yeah. And he said it was what, middle of summer. Is in I
Yeah.
think he said mid 90s or something like that. But he kept it on his tailgate, and for 26 hours they had that bass before they released it was in it, and then as soon as they released it, it was gone. And so that was the reason why I was wanting to ask about the oxygen level, is because he was saying the longest that they were able, or that they done an experiment, was for 3 weeks they kept some shad for 3 weeks that they had just when they first was testing out the product to see how it was doing for bait.
sure. And
So,
he's got a phenomenal product. I saw him down, I think it was in the Tennessee Expo that he was there.
mhm.
But if you don't have the round corners, I think you got a couple strikes against you, because even if you're keeping
All right,
bait,
real fast.
yeah, they're going to get in there. So back to that oxygen box, we have a 50-gallon aquarium here, and we had fish in it for 6 months, just running the oxygen box. We change the filter every week. We feed them fish flakes every day. So the filtration, the oxygen in the water, and circulating that water and getting that mixed up is just what we feel is the perfect environment for whatever you're going to put in there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like what I said at the beginning of the podcast, I've I've used your product many times, and um, and I don't think there's a product. And correct me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong, Damon. There's not a product that you're going to be able to catch live shad or any kind of live bait and put in, and you're going to have 100% survive. But I can say this just with all the trips that I have been out and used your product, I don't have nearly as many bait die off as what I would in any other product. And I'm not trying to bash nobody on that,
Yeah,
but
no.
uh,
And I tell you, regardless of what bait tank you use, how you catch bait is very important. There's so many steps from the time you throw the net to the time you get that bait in the tank. For example, if you right now when you have warm surface temps, if you don't think about this or know it, you don't know what you don't know is what I'm trying to say. If you bring
right,
that bait up from a depth, you're dealing with the bends. You got to bring them up slow. But when you get into that warmer water, you got to haul butt because you're cooking your bait in the net. And then if you're dumping them in a
makes
kiddie
sense.
pool, you got to make sure that that kiddie pool is 70 or 75, whatever temperature your bait tank is.
Yeah,
And then if you put the kiddie pool, which is a great idea, some people will dump it right in their tank. You don't know. There's baits in that net that have been all hung up in that netting. They're damaged.
right,
Don't put those baits in there. Those are going to be the first ones to go. And in some cases, when they go, they take their friends with them. So it's best not to even if you got any question about that bait, unless you just happen to be desperate for whatever you caught because you didn't catch me. Don't put it in that tank. Keep them out.
yeah. See, and that makes sense. The more
Yeah.
you talk about things, the more that I'm looking back and I'm thinking like, well, this is what Caleb does this, and then now just because I just think that I thought he was being picky on things, and now it's like it's making sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, people don't know what they don't know,
Yeah,
especially if you're new. And then when you're new, you get out there and you have all these trial and errors until you figure it out. I like to share, and then all the guys that we have on our pro staff team for Extreme, it's on the website. There's a pro staff tab. They'll take calls or emails from anybody. So if you happen to be up in Ohio or Texas on Lake Texoma and you've never fished that lake, you never caught bait, whatever, there's a guy there that knows these tanks, that uses them every single day, that can step you through the process on what you need to do to catch and keep bait. So you got a good chance of going out there and catching a striper or a blue or whatever you're after.
right. Well, and to me, I I really um, I really enjoy it because it's again doing this with Caleb is has been the first time that I've ever actually went and caught live bait. Usually we'll just go and grab whatever kind of bait from the tackle shop. And um with that going out and doing that, the art of going and catching live bait and one going and finding, that's to me I think is probably one of the hardest things is going and finding. And
Right?
some of the people that I've been out with, they make it look so easy
Yes.
because they'll just go up and they'll scan a bait ball and they're like, nah, not that one. And then
Right.
they can scan and see. I don't know what they're looking for. To me, it just looks like a big old bait ball, Damon. And so I'm like, all right. Well, then he's like,
Yeah.
and then I mean, I know I keep on bringing Caleb up, but I tell people Caleb is the fish whisperer. I
He
don't know
truly
what
is.
he does,
He truly is.
and
And
but
back to Caleb, not only we know the bait ball that he wants to get, he'll know what kind of bait it is.
oh yeah,
If they're big gizzard, small gizzard, threadfin, and he's targeting, he knows also what that bass is going to be hungry for today. You could
yeah,
be throwing a
and I
threadfin
don't.
and your buddy throwing a gizzard, and the gizzard's catching everything.
Yeah.
So
And that's the
they
thing.
know what these guys are hungry for and what size of the bait. Yeah, they
And,
get it
Well,
next
see,
level for sure.
That's the thing. That's the
yeah,
thing about Caleb is he targets a specific size or
Yes.
sizes. He wants to be within a certain a certain
yeah.
length of gizzard shad, and he won't take anything less. I mean, he just won't because
Well, when
he knows what he wants and he knows what will do what.
Yes.
He's very intelligent, man, and especially when I've seen him with your product on the boat, which was the first time ever, I was amazed. I mean, I was truly amazed by what he was doing and the product and your bait tank and everything goes. I mean, we all know gizzard shad; they're so sensitive, and
yeah.
if you don't keep those things just right, they'll die off quick, just like anything else.
Yeah.
Well, I got another question on here. It says, with your tanks, do you have to have an extra battery, or can you run it off like your big motor battery?
So I usually recommend never run it off your motor battery, only because, again, been there, done that, and you're out there fishing, you're not paying attention, and
Yeah,
next thing you know,
you're
you're
paddling
stalled.
on.
You better have a
So
paddle.
that's never a position I want to be in again.
Yeah, that's when
So to
Colin
answer,
getting out in the back of the boat and kicking us back to the bank.
yeah,
Yeah,
my best advice is have an independent battery. These are 12-volt pumps that draw 3 amps. So if you're running two pumps at 6 amps, if you have a 60 amp hour battery, that's going to get you 10 hours. And you're not affecting your electronics or your ability to start your motor. And you also don't make the mistake that a lot of people have. They'll hook up to a battery pack, like their trolling motor battery pack, not thinking that that's a 36 or 24 volt. They put their 12-volt pumps in the tank on that, and they burn out their pumps.
Mm.
You
yeah.
can't go more than
Well,
12
I
volt.
think when I was down in Florida, I seen a dude with one of your tanks, and I was talking to him about it. And he was actually running it off of a what was it? A DeWalt lithium battery is what he was running it off of. He had
Yeah.
some kind of connector to where he wired it up, and all he had to do is just plug that DeWalt in.
So if that's a 20 amp or a 20 volt, which I know my drill batteries are, you can
Mhm.
do it, but it's the same. I mean, you're more than 12. So all he's
Yeah,
doing, it'll work. It'll run a little hotter, but depending on how long he's running it, he's at a risk of burning the pump up.
yeah. Well, see, and
And
that was one of the
he may
things
have figured that out by now.
that, yeah, because that was my thinking on it as well. It to me it made sense to be able to have it. It's so compact and all that, just real quick and easy. And but that was going to be my question for you on it would be because I think mine are 18 to 20 volts, and I was like I didn't know if that pump would hold that, especially for like day in and day out use.
Yeah. So the 12 volts, not only can you not go higher, you don't want to go higher than that, you risk damaging them, but you can't run them for days on end. So
Mhm.
if you are of the desire to keep bait overnight, and that was where this has all really come up, is once we mastered the day, I wanted to be able to master a long weekend. So if you're
Yeah,
on a Thursday or Friday and you want to bait up one time, you've got bait for the next 3 days. And that's
yeah,
when we came up with the 110. So as build a tank, and when you get to your pump options, on almost every tank except the 12, you can add a 110 pump. And what that allows you to do is to use your battery during the day. You get back to the dock or you pull your boat, you disconnect from the battery and you plug the 110 into a GFI outlet. It's the exact same water turnover, exact same filtration and oxygen in the water. That way you can go to bed knowing your bait's good, your batteries are charged, and you wake up and you repeat.
Yeah. Uh, Jerry says, commenting on the like the DeWalt battery, says no, they come with a voltage reducer. So
There you go.
he may be reducing it down to that 12 to be able to make it suffice.
That would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I never owned a DeWalt, so I guess I didn't know
Me neither. All I have is Milwaukee.
that.
So, but man, it's already been over an hour, Damon, and just time flies. As is there like your social media? Is it all just Xtreme Bait Tanks on all your social medias?
It is. That's YouTube, TikTok, Facebook.
Yeah. So, guys, what we're going to do is I'm going to put in the description of this. I'm going to put all his social media on there, so you can go check out his product and the YouTube, and make sure you go. I got a fly flying around, and go check them out and hit that like and subscribe, and make sure um, you follow everything so you can keep up to date with what he's got going. Especially if they get that would be pretty cool if they can get something like that. What you was talking about with for the beach with the have.
The beach buggy.
Oh, he done froze up. I don't know what he's trying to catch.
So, but guys, one last question. Do what,
Say again.
Pappy?
I said you had froze up. You look like you was fixing. You was trying to catch something. Might have been that fly.
Oh yeah, yeah. This thing has been messing around with me for. I had the doors wide open when I had the dogs out, but we got one last question, and Pappy, you want to ask it?
Yes. So Damon, if there was one person that you could fish with, past or present, who would it be and why?
So you got an echo going on. I didn't quite catch the question.
So if can you is it still echoing?
Yeah, Colin, can you read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask it. If you had one person on the boat for one day, could be passed away or still with us, who would it be, and why would you want them on the boat for the day?
Well, that would have to be my father.
Heck yeah,
Yeah, yeah, he would absolutely love what I'm doing now. He passed away in
oh, I can imagine.
2013. But
And
alive,
and
I would love an experience back with Dave Marciano, John Godwin. Both of those guys are just great guys.
yeah,
Everybody I've been on a boat with, I've only had one bad experience. No need talking about it, but everybody's awesome. But to answer his question, it'd be nice to have Dad.
yeah. I definitely agree with. There's no wrong answer, especially on that question. So, guys, make sure you go to Xtreme Bait Tanks and check out the product. They definitely do have the Deck Talk podcast stamp of approval, and we love going out, being able to when we do go live bait fishing. That is the product that we use to be able to keep the live baits alive and well for us. So go check them out, and we're going to see you next week. We're going to actually have, let's see, Ish Monroe is going to be live with us next week. And so make sure you check that out. And if you have any questions, remember this is an interactive podcast. And we will see you next week, guys.
Hey, Colin.
Yep.
Hey, one last thing. Do you want to say anything about our new advertisement? Our rolling
Another.
our rolling
Yeah.
billboard.
Again, if you want to to place an ad and stuff like that, what we're going to be doing is, besides just the running scrolling ad going on the bottom, we are going to, with that, is going to have some artwork done by our social media marketing team, Jen and Dustin Muse. And you can also become uh, the sponsor for that episode as well. But if you have any questions with that, just send Pappy or myself a message, and we can get that information out to you. But other than that, we want to say thanks again to Vaughn and the service that he has done for this country. And Pappy, I cannot wait till next week to see who you have as an honorable mention. Damon, thank you so much for coming on. It is an honor to be able to have you come on. That's one reason why I wanted to have you, because the information about your tanks and what they do is just phenomenal. So thank you again for coming on, brother.
Well, thank you, and you guys have an extreme day.
You too, brother.